Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good evening to Clairvoyance. This is our second episode ever. Clairvoyance is the new Blizzard Heroes of the Storm interview series where we actually just interview players and personalities that are involved in the game to some shape or form, whether they're playing the game 20 hours a day or just kind of observing from afar and trying to help and give input about the game. So, as always, I am your host, Solid Jake, and this is my co-host, See Ya Steve. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Pretty excited. First show got some pretty good reviews, so I'm happy to do another one and looking forward to doing more.
Yeah, pretty good reviews, even though I blundered and actually had my webcam microphone. That's never good, but I think I got my right microphone set up here, and we have two amazing guests, guys that I've known for many years through Major League Gaming, Team Liquids Sheth and Team Liquids Heyoka. Sheth, why don't you introduce yourself real quick and tell us a little bit about your history in esports and just competitive gaming as a whole.
All right, like real quick. It could take a little bit longer than real quick.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so I've been playing StarCraft Brood War since like 1999 or something ridiculous. Back when it was on N64 was when I first played it.
Wow.
And then I was next year. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go year by year, but I just kept playing Brood War. Then I played StarCraft 2 and did really well there. Or at least well enough that I was happy with it. And, I've went to a lot of MLGs where I met Solid Jake. Competed there all the time. I've just been involved with esports in one way or another, from playing to casting. I've done like tournament admin stuff. I've been mods for websites. I've been like checkers for hacking and stuff. Icy Cup, which was a thing back in Brood War. I've edited a book about StarCraft. I've been in a documentary about StarCraft.
So a lot
I don't know,
of stuff.
man. Esports has been pretty much my life.
That's good. I like that.
So StarCraft was pretty much the one and only game you played competitively. Outside of playing it competitively, are there any other esports that you've followed, watched, shown interest in?
Well, the reason I quit StarCraft is because my hands were not great, but I could still play a little bit of League at the time. So I kind of followed League a little bit, watched the LCS, just an amazingly run broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty enjoyable for me to watch. And then of late, I've been following Heroes stuff whenever I can. I've been enjoying Caldor's different videos on the different tournament matches with the MYI Invitational. And I'm sure when there's like replays for me to watch all the time in Heroes, I'll follow that scene too.
Absolutely. Well, our other guest tonight is the one and only Heyoka. Heyoka, again, also with Team Liquid, but not a player. You have a bit of a different past, and why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I've been doing stuff with Team Liquid now for, I guess, like 6 years. I started doing writing. I was actually really into Brood War stats. I collected a lot of stats on Pro League wins. That's how I got into Team Liquid. I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of editing. I helped run TSL3, and then I ran a lot of TSL4. And I've been running the website. I moved to New York so I could work in the Team Liquid offices in 2011. And I've been doing, since then, I guess, I moved a little bit on from StarCraft and started doing a lot of Dota stuff. I became our sort of default MOBA guy for a little while, doing Dota and sort of being involved in League, but not really. And now I'm also doing some Heroes stuff, and I do Hearthstone stuff, and I spend most of my time running Liquid Dota. So those are the things I do. I do esports things. It's a lot of writing, a lot of just organization, adminning, that kind of thing.
Well, the reason we want to bring the two of you on tonight together as a joint thing is recently I was talking to you, actually, last week on Twitter. You reached out and told me about a GameCube controller, and you're like, are you proud of me? I'm playing Melee. And then you also mentioned that you started playing Heroes of the Storm. Now, I've known you for many years. You've been doing stuff with other esports, and I know you're incredibly involved with Dota 2. And a lot of people like to make the comparison of Heroes of the Storm to games like Dota 2 and League of Legends. And I wanted to pick your brain as to, like, as somebody who's so involved with Dota 2, I just really kind of wanted to hear how you feel about Heroes. Like, people like to call it a MOBA, but Blizzard classifies it as a Heroes brawler. And, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that's sort of a problem the game's going to have, is that people are going to view it as a MOBA because it sort of looks like one and it sort of plays like one. It's 5-on-5, you get experience, you collect objectives. But at its core, it's a very, very different game, and so it doesn't really play like a MOBA, but when people like are trying to understand what it is, they'll just be like, "Oh, this is a thing that's like Dota." It's like kind of true and kind of not. It's like not really a MOBA, honestly. I think it's a very different kind of game. I think calling it a brawler is actually sort of accurate. So it's almost more like Team Gauntlet. You're just kind of running around casting spells on people and trying to work as a team to collect things instead of like trying to get one guy really farmed and then just have him kill people.
Fair enough. All right, so you talk about farm. What would be like the biggest difference you think between them? Is it just a farm, or is there some other thing that you notice?
The thing that I noticed most prominently when I originally played it last year at BlizzCon was that I remember Dustin Browder made a big deal of this in one of the press conferences too. Is that any one individual person can't impact the game by himself as much as you can in Dota or League or any of the other 50 other clone MOBAs at this point.
Yeah.
And the thing is like because there's no items and because there's no last hitting and because experience is shared, that means that any one person is not leagues above the other people on their team. And I think that makes it play out very, very uniquely. And like in Dota, if you're solo queuing, you can actually just sort of ignore your team and get really farmed and just win the game. It's a very viable strategy in a lot of situations. Not all, but in many.
Yeah, it exists where it doesn't in Heroes.
You just can't do that in Heroes,
No.
like at any point ever,
Right.
under any circumstance, because you're always the same level as the people on your team, and you're at most maybe 2 levels above the other team if you're playing really well or it's going really, really good. You know, it's about trying to get people to do things together as opposed to just getting some people really powerful. Like, you know, in Dota, you have all these strategies that are revolve around farming 1 or 2 heroes and then just making those heroes so powerful that they can't be stopped by a team of 5.
Yeah, Heroes definitely took a deviated path away from hyper carries.
Right. That's why I think the comparison to MOBAs is not that good, because the set of viable strategies are very, very different, and there's not a ton of overlap in terms of how those play out.
That's I agree.
Sheth, would you agree?
Well, I think split pushing, last hitting, those are kind of the major mechanics that we all kind of feel are not in the game. You know, comparing it to Dota, I do think it feels like a MOBA still to me. And I think that actually one person can make a pretty big difference in Heroes. Arguably the same amount of difference. It's just hard for people to see it, right? Like it's not as visible. But if you have one person who gets a perfect ult of something like, you know, a Falstad ult, or if Stitches gets a hook, there are a lot of situations where one player can just win an entire game on their own. Just unless you know exactly how they did it, it may be hard to watch and figure it out. But I mean, I agree with all the rest of your points. I just think that that's maybe you're underselling that one person can do quite a bit.
So would you agree that the game is, or would you disagree that the game is a MOBA? You think it is a MOBA, and you think it's not a Heroes Brawler. You think it should not be in its own category? Because
I think it's both.
you think, okay, so you think it's different enough, but it's still kind of a MOBA.
Yeah, it's like stepping stone, kind of. Like it's not quite Bloodline Champions, and it's not quite League of Legends. It's right in between.
Is it unique enough that people are going to clone it? Because people are cloning League and Dota, and you know, there's Infinite Crisis. There's a million clones. Is Heroes of the Storm going to differentiate enough? Excuse me, to have other games spawn from the same kind of format? Do you think that'll happen in the future?
Well, I think pretty much any game that gets popular enough is going to have some clones.
True.
It'd be very difficult to clone something like this, primarily because it's based very heavily on lore as well. Like that's what makes it really fun as well, is that they have these characters that people have known and kind of almost grown up with, and you get to play with them. So maybe if there's something that's like a clone of it with like Marvel heroes or something, or like DC heroes, like that would maybe be very successful. And I think that would be a cool idea with this sort of strategy. But other than outside of that, I don't see anything that would quite be able to clone it as well, I think.
Fair enough. So just before we move on, so how do I phrase this? Heroes is certainly different in certain ways, and we've definitely seen a couple of the character design kind of come forward and really show that. Like in Dota, yeah, you have like Lifestealer can jump into his allies or whatever and all that good stuff, but like in Heroes you have like Abathur, and like that's something that's just entirely different. How do you think that kind of portrays to people that are looking at the game for the first time? And like it's so different from anything that I've seen. I've been playing MOBAs for, geez, what, 8-10 years now. It shocked me the first time I saw it. What are your first impressions on things like the specialists in Heroes?
What do you think, Heyoka? You just recently probably have seen Abathur not too long ago.
No, I mean, I played Abathur at BlizzCon last year. So,
Oh.
yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
Dustin Browder made a big deal about how, in one of the press conferences, about how the reason they decided to do the shared experience thing was because of Abathur,
Right.
because he couldn't like go anywhere.
Oh, wow.
I think,
He's too squishy.
yeah, well, because his whole character design is meant to be like in the base or whatever the entire time.
And he would just fall behind an XP so rapidly that he
Yeah,
didn't
it's
make
not
it didn't
near-
work. Yeah.
Right.
It's not near
right.
creeps. I think there's parts of it that are really unique. I think a lot of it's actually, it feels very standard to me, where you have like a lot of the specialists are this kind of heroes where they have like a nuke and then also a slow that's also kind of a nuke and then an escape and then an ult that just does a bunch of damage, which I think is a very, very standard thing in a MOBA. And it's not super unique outside of like some of them can cloak, I guess. But it has some stuff that's really, really unique, and it has other stuff that looks to me like it's just sort of what everything else does. I think as a game, it's one of those things too where as they sort of find their grounds as a game and as they discover which direction they want to take the maps and sort of see how those play out, the hero design will probably get a lot more interesting as time goes on, but it's hard to say at this point. It's a little too early, I think, to really make any judgment.
I mean, Abathur is like one of the points you brought up, but another hero that I think probably stands out. Now, admittedly, I don't have a lot of experience with Dota or League, but Murky came off to me as like this like really crazy unique character, a character that can just suicide and respawn for like little to no risk. Is that something that really stands out, or is that something that the other games have as well?
I mean, he's not...
Sort of like techies?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that different than techies. It's different enough, I would say. I mean, there are a couple of characters that really stand out, and I think there's a lot of room for more interesting designs in the game just because it plays out a lot differently than things that might be considered similar games. But I think right now I would say it's a mix between unique things and things that are pretty normal.
Okay. Here, I'll pose at least one more question on this. So, in terms of uniqueness of the game, do you think that Blizzard has come out like basically swinging, or are they still kind of holding back a little bit? Because like we only have 28 heroes in the game right now, but from what I've seen, it like there aren't many heroes that overlap too much, and a lot of them have brought some kind of uniqueness to the game in some way or another. Obviously, no matter how you make a game like this, there's going to be some overlap with another MOBA somewhere else. But like even take Sergeant Hammer, for example. Like, she's literally a siege tank put into a MOBA. Like, if somebody told me that was going to happen in Dota, I would be like, you got to be crazy. Like, there's no way this is happening. But then you look at it in Heroes, and it kind of works, and it makes me have a bright outlook on the future.
She really works. I mean, she seemed weird at first, but ever since they redid her talent tree, she's great.
You can backdoor her with people too, which is sick.
Yeah, she's pretty interesting. But yeah, so I mean, do you think that the hero pool and the design right now is diverse enough to kind of set heroes apart, or is it still a little bit too far back? I don't know what the word is.
I'd say with 28 characters, it's a pretty good representation of a lot of the different things they can do. You know, I'm comparing it internally in my head to games that have literally like between 100 and like 130 characters.
Yeah.
So it's difficult
tough.
to scale that up and know.
Yeah.
I'd say it's pretty good as it is right now. One of the things I think they've done a really good job of is taking the IPs they have and making the characters sort of feel uniquely like that thing. The Siege Tank is like the Queen actually is really amazing just in terms of the abilities that she does and kind of giving that feel, like just really owning what that property is, which I think is really cool. And the there's one other character that I love the way he just feels. But I can't remember who. Yeah, Arthas is super
Diablo
good.
does too. Like Diablo just feels like this terror that's in your face.
Yeah, Diablo's really good.
Stitches is up there as well.
And even Illidan, they realized Illidan didn't feel like Illidan, and they completely reworked the character. Now, granted, he's booty. He's absolutely terrible in the game right now, but he actually feels more like Illidan, the Illidan you'd expect based on Warcraft.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Cool. I mean, honestly, so we're talking about like, does this all feel right? Does it match up? Does Heroes have to diversify so much? Can they feel like the other games. I mean, granted, they're matching StarCraft, Warcraft, and
Diablo.
I just blanked too.
Oh gosh,
That was bad.
they're making the characters feel like the right representation. But is it a problem if characters overlap with a game like League of Legends and whatnot? I mean, and actually, let's actually just kind of scrap that question. Should they be trying to gear towards the audience of other MOBA players, or should they just not worry and just make a game that's fun?
See, I don't think that they should really... I think anything they do that invites a comparison to League or Dota is bad for them. I think that's something that they need to not do at all.
Okay.
I think if people make that connection, it's not great. You need this to sort of stand out on its own. And the reason I think that is because there are so many MOBAs these days. There's a Batman one. There's a MOBA for anything you could conceivably want to do. There's Smite. You can play like as a god.
Not to bash games, but when you call it a Batman one, I mean it's DC. But there's literally like 4 or 5 Batman characters in that game.
Yeah,
so.
there were 2 in the original closed alpha. It had 2 Batman originally.
Batman and Gaslight Batman.
That's how you knew what direction it was going. But the thing is so because of that market is sort of kind of maxed out for where it's going to be for the next maybe 2 years. The people who want to play those games are playing those games, and while they will try out other things, if this is too similar to them, they're just going to go back to playing the games that they like to play with their friends.
And the games they're invested in.
Right. So this game needs to be something that is unique enough that people can play it for what it is, which I think is good, but it took me probably 10 or 15 games to sort of see that, because I was trying to compare it mentally in my head to what Dota is, and it doesn't compare very favorably, I think, to that game if you're comparing it on the same level, or at least it didn't to me.
Yeah, it certainly has a pretty steep, I guess we'll call it entrance curve, because once you start playing, okay, this game's cool, but you don't really have any way to tell what it is compared to other stuff, and I totally agree with what you said. The first time I played it, I was like, wow, this game's really cool, but should I keep playing this or should I look elsewhere? And I stuck with it, and I love it, so. Well, I'm glad I did.
Just a couple nights ago, Sheth was on our other show, and he actually mentioned when he first got into Heroes of the Storm, he's like, this game sucks.
I was comparing it to League, you can't last to it, you can't carry a team, players at low level are not that good at all, not to be rude to them. When you start, it's
That's true, because it's a team game, and low level is really brutal. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the map objectives, you don't know that you can cap mercs to help them or to help your team with them, that's not going to happen. People are like, oh, well, we don't have a jungler. I guess we just won't jungle.
Solo queuing is really hard in this game.
Yeah, it's pretty tough for anywhere that's not really, really high up in the ranks. It seems to be almost only complaints. So hopefully Blizzard addresses that.
So before we talk about solo queuing, Chef, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to be fair, it's an alpha, and I think once ranked play is enabled, and there's maybe even rewards for ranked play, it'll get a lot better because you can get out of the low-level stuff pretty quick, I'd assume.
Mm-hmm.
But again, for what you're saying, of bringing people in, it's still going to be kind of a rough start if you're transitioning from League or Dota, with the idea is this better than League or Dota?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, like you said, it's not better at things League and Dota are trying to do. It's its own weird thing that works.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Heyoka, you said it took you about 15 games to kind of realize that this is kind of its own thing. Chef, what did it take you to realize that, this isn't a crap game, it's a different game? I mean, you said you kind of went away from it. What kind of made you come back?
Well, whenever I played by myself, whenever I was playing it first, I was just playing by myself a lot. And it's really hard to carry a team, right? But then I started playing with a friend who was pretty good, and when you have 2 people on your team, you can kind of start carrying a game a little bit more, and then another friend was playing with us, and we were 3 people, you can really carry a game, and you can start doing cool combos with each other, and it just was this is different than League, I don't, you don't get this sort of coordination really all the time in League, where everyone has to almost do this choreographed dance. It just kind of feels like almost a constant WoW raid with your friends. I don't know, just whenever
it's like a 5-man instance.
Yeah, whenever I figured that out, it's okay, this game's pretty cool, but it's definitely not the same as League or Dota in that regard.
Absolutely.
So I guess I'll just do it. I'm just going to take a tiny little pot shot at Blizzard. How do you guys feel about the talent gating system when you first come in? I know that when you first started Sheth, it wasn't how it is now, where it's individual per year. It was you had to level up to level 8. But even then, I remember the first time I played, I was like, wow, this is I'm a veteran MOBA player, but like I have to wait and unlock my stuff. Like this seems weird. Did that deter you from continuing, or and this is to both of you? Like did that offset any idea that you wanted to keep going, or what was your feeling?
For me, when I first started, like I don't even recall it being that much of a problem when I first started, because I was like, okay, I'll learn as I go, right? On like one character, and then after you learn a couple characters and kind of get the ideas, because the talents repeated themselves a lot, I was like, I don't want to keep doing this for all the other champions.
Yeah.
But you have to. And then like a couple days after I started, artifacts were implemented and all that happened.
It's okay, it's gone.
Like, I was still like level 10 and I didn't get any gold for it, and I couldn't use any artifacts. And I still thought it was fun, which was like kind of cool. But now I'm happy they're gone, and hopefully they kind of remove talent gating. Like after your first like 2 or 3 heroes, you probably don't need it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it used to work is you hit level 8 on your account. You have an account level, and then you just have all the talents. And I think that's a great fix, because at that point you've played a decent amount of the game. You've earned it. You should have the core understanding of how to play the game. I don't think... I mean, I've talked about this 1,000 times in 10 halls. It's just... There's no, like... fun factor.
Benefit.
There's no benefit. There's like no... It's not like you feel rewarded by unlocking them. It's just like... It stresses you out more than anything else. It's just like, I don't want to play this character because I don't have all the talents. I can only use Evolution Master on Abathur, or why would I play Abathur? I can't use
That's all you can use anyways.
I know.
But yeah, so Heyoka, like you're from Dota, and for anybody that doesn't know out there somehow, Dota has everything unlocked just from the get-go. So like what like you said, it felt super grindy. Was there any other thing that went through your head the first time you saw like talent gating?
It seems grindy and it seems really unnecessary. I can kind of understand where, even apart from them wanting people to play a lot of games on different heroes to like get used to them, you know, there's part of them where they're going to say, oh well, we want it to be very accessible to new people and not give them too many choices at once. And I think that's really kind of stupid, and I think it's just way too grindy. There's just no reason to lock a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the community that feel the same way, so you're not alone.
It's a pretty hot topic, and the fact that they removed the artifacts so quickly, and they really scaled down the experience needed to get to level 4 to unlock all your talents, leads me to believe that was a quick, easy fix. It's just like, all right, we're going to cut out like 2 million experience, and that way it's easier for them to level. I don't know what the exact number is, but I feel like they already have a longer term, like they need to add other rewards on those 3 levels. Whether it's just like a portrait or an extra portrait or something to that extent.
I kind of feel like we should almost start a petition on the subreddit of something like, hey, we know Blizzard watches this subreddit. We just kind of wanted to give you our community's feedback on talent gating and how we would like to change it, and then just like see if we can get something like 100 people to comment on it or whatever. And I think that would probably go a ways towards making it more account-wide, or just them changing it even more favorable. I think I'm really, really, really surprised how often Blizzard is listening to this community and how like quickly they're changing things.
They changed the artifacts thing in like a week.
Yeah, it was like awesome.
Like 10 days.
Yeah, it was actually awesome. And not to put down Blizzard or anything, but like their response rate for a lot of things has not been anywhere near that fast. But unless it's like a game-breaking bug, which obviously they're good on. But like, man, I don't know,
man, that Diablo bug was there for a long time. Is that still there?
No, it's gone. It's gone.
Okay. That was only there for like.
It's like
10 days, like 10.
Longer than you'd expect.
It probably could have gone quicker, but I mean,
it just made him almost as strong as Arthas.
Yeah, it just made him actually be like the top pick for a lot of scrims for a long time until they all banned it. But I mean, they're good. Like granted, this is still alpha, so like even their like patch structure is still iffy. Because I mean, every time we get a patch, something tends to break. But they're also good on
still does that.
Right. I mean, that's kind of like Blizzard 101. Shout outs to Blizzard. You guys are awesome. But so I mean, that was one of the topics we were going to talk about, is how fast Blizzard is actually responding to the community. Like a Reddit, when the artifacts first came out, they released it and they like kind of teased it with an image, and people were like, "Oh my god, if these are runes, we're gonna lose our minds." And then like they basically became runes from League, and everyone lost their minds. And like there was maybe like 4 or 5 people defending it, and it just like the Reddit just blew up. Like so many people commented, and they were like, okay, this is what we need to do. We have to fix this. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Browder actually came out and said, look, this hasn't even been put out yet. He posted on the Blizzard forum saying, look, we hear you loud and clear. Try it out. This is an alpha. We've never put the game out this early before. We're actually just trying things, so please try it out. We're listening to your feedback. And then, what was it, the top 8 Reddit threads of all time were all bashing it within a week on that subreddit. So in Blizzard, they responded within 10 days, gone. They announced it, and I remember Sham 2 and I were at work, and we're just like, wait, this is not real, right? Like this is happening already? Like,
yeah,
you know, it felt like a massive victory. But I mean, so I mean, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, because Sheth, you said on Tuesday, like Blizzard didn't have that kind of relationship with the StarCraft 2 community. Now, we don't know. I mean, maybe this is because it's an alpha and they're in like this super crazy mode. But like, I'll tell you this much: the Heroes of the Storm community managers are so active and so responsive with us. Like, it's awesome.
It is awesome. They're amazing people for what they do. Like, I love it. Oh my god, it makes me feel so good about this game.
Yeah, I've talked to community managers, excuse me, from StarCraft and from Heroes. Right, I've had a lot of interaction with both of them from both games. And again, no offense to the StarCraft CM, but he felt much more like PR responses to everything, and that was kind of what we'd get for a lot of answers for StarCraft 2. It's just like, we hear you, we're working on it, maybe in the future, right? Like, that's basically standard Blizzard answer for StarCraft. But with Heroes, we were getting like a lot more like, all right, like actually write that down and I'll look into it, you know? Like, and they would. Like, that was, it's just pretty amazing. I forgot what else you asked, but yeah, I'm super jealous. I wish, I think maybe Blizzard learned from StarCraft and was just like, hey, new game, let's listen more to our community, and I hope they do that, you know.
Now, I know this is a hero show, but do you think this is something that could benefit StarCraft in the future? Do you think Blizzard might be turning a new leaf, and when Legacy of the Void comes out, are your hopes up? Is StarCraft? I mean, it's died down quite a bit, and I know it's not a StarCraft show. I just want to hear if you think that could happen.
Well, I can tell you that one of the CMs for Blizzard for the StarCraft side, back when we made the Destiny thread, or when Destiny made the thread like StarCraft 2 is going to die, he was saying something like, right now, the reason, you know, maybe a lot of these things aren't going to be implemented in StarCraft is because we're kind of saving them to implement them in Heroes of the Storm, and that's kind of the esport we're putting our money on, which is really weird because then after that they kind of been like, Heroes isn't the esport, we don't care if it's an esport. But that was like their initial thought.
The PR line.
They're lying.
Yeah.
We don't care. Yes.
They want it to be an esport.
Not really an esport, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So the ours don't too.
Yeah.
So.
That's very interesting.
Pretty excited about that. And I think like that's their real stance on it.
On that note, Heroes of the Storm is actually getting, like you said, a ton of new features. And you know, as an esport, like, do you guys think actually just as a whole, you said they're going to be giving new spectator client tools. The observer tools are going to be way better. You're going to be able to watch in game. That's something StarCraft 2 has never had. That's something that MOBAs have had for a very long time. And I think StarCraft 2 will be getting that feature as well. You'll be able to watch a game live as the match is going on with a few minutes of delay. And on top of that, though, like, Blizzard started WCS, and WCS started as a league where they kind of like support events. They gave, you know, WCS points to like MLG events and all this stuff. And at first there was like a ton of events everywhere in every country you can imagine. It was like amazing. And eventually they kind of switched it up and made it more formulated, where ESL is running a league in Europe. Initially it was MLG running a league in North America that switched to NASL, and now it's ESL as well. And Korea was bouncing back and forth between two leagues based on the season. Super structured, kind of pushed leagues like MLG away. What do you think they should do with Heroes of the Storm? Should they follow the kind of like WCS model they have? Should they copy what Valve does? Should they look at an LCS model? What do you think is best for Heroes?
They should decide in like a year when the game is out and there's a community for it. It's just way too early. It's way too early for them to do anything very structured more than a BlizzCon tournament and maybe helping other community run events, I think.
I disagree. Like, all right, Heyoka, what do you think about this? Like, you know how with League, they started very early, like, keep saying like, I'm trying to say less of like, they started running
Was it that early,
tournaments.
though? It was like 2012, wasn't it?
It was way earlier than that. It was at
Because they
least
had events,
2011.
but they were really, really small. Like they were like
They
that.
were really small,
They were
and
like
that's
that Twisted
fine.
Tree Line event and stuff.
But they like paid for it, right? Like
Right.
they paid for that.
They were small though.
event.
They were small, which I
But
think
that's
is
okay.
what matters.
I think
yeah,
Blizzard should
okay.
do something similar to that.
I'm fine with that. I just think that they shouldn't rush into anything and make it too big. I think one of
Yeah,
the problems
no TIs. We don't need that. I don't.
Right.
Think. Although
I
it would be awesome if they want to put $1 million into it. Like by all means.
I think that's actually bad for the game for the long term growth.
Really?
Yeah, I
The
think
TI?
that was one of the problems that StarCraft 2 had is they tried to artificially inflate it too much at the beginning. And there's a couple things that does. The first thing it does is that it brings people in who don't really care about the game itself. They haven't had a time to sort of learn the game and sort of decide if this is something they want to like build infrastructure for and be a part of. They just kind of flock to it because there's money.
Mhm.
And then it creates really unrealistic expectations because if you start it too high and then it either stays the same or it goes down, people think that the game is now less active and it makes it less attractive to play. You need that to always be going up.
Right.
That's a very, very important thing to make it feel like the game is always growing for a game like this. And so I think it's very, very important that they start things off on a manageable level where people from the community are building a lot of infrastructure and doing a lot of events and showing a lot of support for things before they actually come and step in and say, like, we want to do big things. Like, there's a reasonable chance they could do a very big tournament at BlizzCon next year, and that would be very good, assuming there is support. But if they kind of try to force it and there's not a lot of support, then there's this one big event, and then everything after it feels like it's just nothing because it's so much smaller. Like, this happens with stuff like Shootmania, where they
Right.
funded that one huge event, and no one really watched it, and no one really cared because the game was new and it wasn't that good. And then you can't go past that and have more events because now they're 1/10 the size of this thing that happened a month ago. And you can't sell that to sponsors, and you can't get anyone to watch it, and it's hard to get the teams to take it seriously. So it's a very, very serious problem when you're at that stage, and that's almost irreversible at that point. So,
Yeah. I'm gonna throw my hat in.
Go ahead.
So I totally agree with that, and what you said is definitely an issue. But there's also the counter side of it, which kind of taking the way that I don't want to say the league did, because part of it I want to say is also a little bit of luck. But so I used to run the community events for League, like that was my thing. I worked with Solomid, I did their invitationals and everything. And the first thing I want to touch on is that when LCS became a thing, it effectively killed every community run event. Like it just stopped, and it was like,
Yep.
okay, like we see that you have this grand vision, but like now we just feel alienated, and we don't want to help you. And like from that day on, I just stopped. I was like, I'm not interested in League anymore. Like, great, you have LCS, and like that's awesome for you.
Absolutely.
But I just turned and left. But that's my own little aside thing. I think that Blizzard should definitely support community stuff and not try to overrule it and be kind of like this monarch for it. But in terms of what Riot did, now every time they run LCS runs in the red, I believe. I don't think they actually make money from any of their any of their cast or anything. But the amount of money that they've just constantly infused into that game, I don't want to say it gave the game life, but it definitely pushed it to a limit that you probably wouldn't have seen if they didn't make those moves. So like, if Blizzard decides to take that route and push the money into it, I think it'll be okay. But they have to not stop doing it for like, they have to have like a 5-year plan of just constantly
10 year,
injecting,
I think.
longer
than
just
5.
very, very long, and like it has to be a continuously rising rate. And if they don't do that, I don't think it's gonna make like it. I can't say with any certainty that it'll make it, but if they let it grassroots and have the community go, like we already have people like myself, ESV, like Nexus, MYI, like we're all already running events, and the game's not even out yet. Like we will build this community, and I hope that they let us do that and help us with whatever they can. But like, man, I want the community to be there, and exactly what you said, like if we build a really strong base, we're gonna build a skyscraper. But if they try to do it, who knows what's gonna happen.
I mean, I think Heyoka said it perfectly, like you said, and like you just explained. LCS kills everything. WCS, kind of the middle of the road. They kind of do their own thing, and they kind of
killed everything too.
It did, but then they tried to fix it. They tried to fix it. Riot's never attempted to fix it, but
Riot. All right, so
like StarCraft 2 came back to MLG. Was that the most recent MLG? That's something that's never happened with League. League has not come back to MLG.
Right.
Once LCS popped up, I mean that was it. and you still see StarCraft.
But wasn't there a few tournaments for LoL after LCS
They had
started?
They were
They had the
LCS.
Challenger. Yeah, they had the
They
They had
Challenger.
that
Oh.
amateur thing, right? Yeah.
But, like, and like now they're trying to step up to have like Challenger stuff as well, which is basically taking over the amateur scene and basically branding it with Riot stuff, which is fine because that means that they're actually caring about the amateur scene.
Right. It's getting better,
But
for
like
sure. Yeah.
it's I don't know that it just left a really bad taste in my mouth when they did what they did. So
But yeah, I mean, I hope we get the TIs. I think even if they ran the one big BlizzCon at the end of the year, I think that's perfect. Support the scene, support people like ESV, Nexus Champ, whoever else is running events at the time, and have one big tournament that everything seeds into. Just have the community seed into it.
yeah, I would be okay with that for now.
Just seed into BlizzCon. That'd be perfect. But
again,
we'll
you
see
have
what
to
they do. We'll see what they
I
do.
like what Heyoka said too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they should put a ton of money into it. I think it should be like not even like I think this BlizzCon's tournament will be like no money at all.
Oh,
And I
it
think that's
shouldn't be.
how
It should not be for money. No.
Yeah, correct. It should just be for
I don't
pride.
think it will be.
Wasn't the Hearthstone thing last year was only there was no actual prize, right? It's just the
Yeah,
trophy.
there's a trophy.
Yeah.
The trophy.
I think they should do that. That was
I
good.
think it's
I agree.
perfect. Yeah. I mean, you have the. I hope they actually invite teams. I hope it's not just like, hey, BlizzCon attendees, sign up and play.
That would be
Yeah,
that would be a
Win
thing.
the cup.
That'd be a sad display of their game, in my opinion, and a mistake. But let's hope that they actually invite teams, because there's a lot of guys that are trying really hard to be the best, and even teams sponsoring players already. We can actually talk about that a little bit. Do you think? I mean, Heyoka, do you think it's too early for teams like Curse and Empire and My Insanity to be jumping in and signing squads? I mean, we have no idea what the contracts will look like, but I mean, I'd be shocked if you guys announced a Team Liquid squad next week, because that's never been your style. I
Now
mean,
they're going to, and you're like, oh man.
I'm gonna do it just to spite you.
hey, I'd be okay with that.
Reverse
So,
psychology.
how do you feel about that? Just do you think it's too soon?
I mean, I think it's a little soon, but on one hand, I think it's a little soon. On the other hand, the thing is like, they're probably not really paying these guys salary. It's probably like a name only or like a gear type deal.
Yeah.
And these are all people who want to just get more serious about their teams, and I think that's fine if they want to make it a little more official. I mean, more power to them. I don't think there's any harm in it. I think it's a little ambitious to think that anything major is going to come of it for the next probably 6 months or maybe a year or something. But I think, if you want to form a team and you want to reach out to Dignitas and they're interested in having you as part of their brand, then why not?
Yeah.
Players, reach out to Dignitas.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Clairvoyance.
And segueing on that, let's talk about players like Sheth that are coming over from other games. There's actually a ton of them. I mean, you've been playing with Snowflake a little bit, subbing for them, who has Idrin, LZ Gamer, also former StarCraft 2 players. Noni plays. I don't think Noni intends to be too competitive with it, but I shouldn't speak for him. That's just what I've heard from other people. And I think we have Vortex and Lucifron.
Yeah, and Ace has a team.
And
Yeah.
there's a
Ace
whole
and
Korean
SC
squad.
and
There's
Ace and
all
SC and Kong
Yeah.
and
Crazy moving.
Crazy Moving's on that team.
Is that Team
So-
No Limit? I think that's their name.
Team No Limit, that is correct. There's a lot of people coming over. Some League of Legends guys were playing initially. They were like semi-pros. I think Arthalon is actually a former sub for Complexity, or it was a different. It might have been a
He used
different
to,
team.
yeah, he's a challenger player.
Challenger
he's-
plays.
he's
So
good.
he's a league guy. I mean, there's a lot of like semi-pro league players. I don't know too much about Dota players switching over, but like,
There's none.
do you think it really benefits coming from a different game like that, or do you think it's such a different game, such a unique experience that as long as you have like decent mechanical skills, you're going to be on the same playing field?
One of the things I learned from the transition between Brood War and StarCraft 2 is that the skill sets that you assume will transfer over by games being sort of similar mechanically are not. You can't really figure it out just by looking. And so I would guess that the important aspects of being a professional are things like knowing how to train, knowing how much it takes to practice, knowing how to practice effectively, being good at games in general, which some of these people just are naturally more talented than others.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things that are going in their favor, but it's because they're pro gamers, not because they're specifically gamers of League or of a game that's like
Right.
mechanically like this one.
So basically, just like general mindset
Yeah,
stuff that
makes
they
sense.
carry over. Yeah.
Yeah, just people who know what it's like to be a professional and are able to transfer that mindset, I think will be helped a lot. I think there's not a lot of transfer in terms of actual game experience. At least that's what I saw when everyone switched over from Warcraft 3 and from Brood War to StarCraft 2.
I think there's actually a detriment for a couple of players. Like certain league players that came over were like, "Oh, we can totally just do this." It's like that doesn't work in this game, and it's gonna hurt if you try it.
Yeah,
like,
that's also.
they'll try to like split push, and then they'll just lose, and it's like, why didn't that work?
Yeah.
Well, it's not this game. Like that doesn't work that way.
Now, actually, let's talk about that split pushing. It's kind of a strategy that doesn't really work in this game. I mean, there are definitely heroes that can push on their own, like Sergeant Hammer or Zagara. I almost said Nazebo. She probably could too, or he.
Nazebo's a pretty.
Yeah. But do you think that that's an issue, or do you think that just the nature of the game it makes sense?
I kind of think it's going to change a lot more with the advent or the introduction of a lot of new heroes. Like, there's a lot of potential too. I know we've talked a little bit about Zagara's Nidus network and how it almost feels like everyone in the team should be able to go in it and exit it. And I think that would be a really neat mechanic.
Oh my god.
It might be super overpowered.
It might be a little bit broken. It might be a little bit broken.
But like the level 20 talent.
It would be fun as hell.
Yeah, right?
Hey, let's all go take Grave Golem immediately and then get out. Like,
It'd be really easy to kill. Just give it like 1 HP. Like,
Instant TP for everyone in your team. That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
gosh.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like
This is why Sheth doesn't make video games.
Keeper had it, right?
Well, they'd all be really overpowered if I made it.
Yeah.
Hammer just shoots the other Nexus from the starting point. You just start on a timer.
Break everything until it's broken.
It's like that cannon that was in Total Annihilation that would shoot across the map.
Yeah. Go. You're good. It's all set. What are we even talking about? Oh, split pushing. Yeah. So you guys think that like there's certain aspects of the game that are just blatantly missing that you think should be in there, or is it kind of like a community meta thing that we're going to figure out over time, and as you said, when more characters are added in?
Yeah. I mean, the strategies. The thing with strategies is that they seem, in the beginning, they start off as very limited, and they grow from there. And so I think it's really too early to say if it's good or bad. It might just be a game that split pushing doesn't work in, and I think that's fine as long as there are other diverse strategies, which, from what I've seen, seems to exist right now so far. So I think it's fine. It doesn't. There's not any specific strategy that I think needs to be in the game. I think what's more important is that there are distinct things you can do. If there's like 3 or 4 things that are just better than everything else, then I think that's kind of lame. But if there's like maybe between 7 and 10 good strategies in any given map, that would be good. That might be actually a little optimistic. But if there's just a handful of different things you can do,
right? As long as there's some diversity, it feels good.
I think diversity is what matters, not any one specific thing being viable or good or not viable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. All right.
Well, I think the last topic we want to just touch on really quick is just kind of ranked in draft mode. They kind of just announced via a German website that it is a thing in the game. You guys have both played other MOBAs. How do you think it should function? They kind of tease us what it's going to be like. I think it should be more like League of Legends or more like Dota 2.
Just in terms of how the draft works, or I prefer the Dota draft system a lot, and a lot of the people I talked to who have played this, who have only played League, didn't realize that there were other ways to do it, which I thought was interesting. I think having 2 ban phases is actually very, very important. Dota has 3 now, but I think 2 would probably be fine for this game, even when it has maybe like 50, 60 characters.
Yeah. Go ahead, go.
Oh, I wasn't even going to say anything important. I was just going to say I completely agree. I think maybe even 1 ban phase until they add like 3 more heroes, which may sound weird, but I think right now 1 ban phase is fine until they add like 1 more ADC or 1 more of like each class, just so that it's viable, a little bit easier for people to pick which ones and still have equal power, kind of.
Yeah.
But then I'm fine with 2, and then like add another 30 or whatever, and then maybe I'll think 3. But I love Dota's drafting ban picks.
I think they've patched Dota's a couple times in the last couple of years. It's like it's a new thing since 2011 or so that it's been as diverse as it is, and I think the way they do it's really good.
I mean, I don't watch MOBAs in general, but I watch TI religiously every year. Like over the last 2 years at least, I get so into TI, and the draft is just such an interesting thing because I always watch it with friends that are Dota fanatics, and they're telling me why each pick and mid is so important, and it makes me like, I'm an esports fanatic. It's obvious. I work in esports, and it's all I care about is watching games.
You've never told me, Jake. I never knew.
And
all this time.
it's kind of like calling a play in football or something. Like, why did they make that play? And it adds a lot of depth to the game. And I think early on, like, nobody really knew if Blizzard was actually going to have drafts, period. Now, this pretty much confirms we're going to have them, but I just really hope, like you said, we have the double ban phase. After probably 40 heroes, I think we need 40 to have 2 phases of banning within the draft. But
so my biggest thing about it is I have been a proponent of the Dota system forever. Like, the first time I saw that, I fell in love immediately. But I also realized immediately that, like, it just doesn't work for general populace solo queue. Like, if you go into ranked and you do that, people are gonna, like, it just becomes a mess. Like, I tried to do it with people that weren't used to the system, and they saw it for the first time, or they saw it for the 15th time, and they still didn't, like, really get it. Like, they didn't understand how to use it, and it just, I don't know, it didn't feel right. And then, like, I played League, and it was like, okay, this, like, everybody at least gets this. Like, yeah, worst case scenario, they burn flavor of the month stuff, but, like, it just worked. It felt a lot more, it felt a lot cleaner, and it flowed better. So my opinion of it is that solo queue, sure, do the 1 ban phase, do however many bans you need, but for tournament play, like, for me, it's Dota system the whole way, because it's just so good. That's just my input.
So in theory, have multiple options available. That's the optimal situation, is have multiple options available. I mean, no one could disagree. Having options is obviously the best case scenario. I don't think anyone would disagree with you there. But
the developers might, because that's more work for them.
How much?
Well, it's close to the community some too, and so it actually makes it a little bit more difficult. But
simplicity is generally good with MOBAs. As much as I hate to say it, right?
Simplicity is good in anything that's, like, super public. Like, when you have people that you have to match with 5 random people. Like, if it's complex, it's only going to get worse because nobody knows how everybody plays. So, as simple as they can make it, it's probably best for solo queue. But again, my opinion, tournament play, Dota style all day.
Well, hopefully sooner than later we'll have more news on that. But I think that pretty much covers our interview for today. I'm actually really glad we got this down with you guys and kind of pick your brains about the game. Just really interesting to hear and see the different perspectives coming from different titles, because I know so little about other games, except for StarCraft 2. I know plenty about StarCraft 2.
Do your research, man. Come on.
I need to research. No, man. This is very interesting for me, and I hope the viewers enjoy it as well. So on that note, we can actually move to the shout-outs. Heyoka, where can people find you on the internets?
I am on Twitter at RealHeyoka. I also run LiquidDota.com. It's a Dota website with Dota news and Dota things. You can go there for Dota things. I also do stuff on Team Liquid and on Liquid Hearth, which is our Hearthstone website. I like to play all of those games. I think those are all the places you can find me. Shout-outs just to Team Liquid and all the staff and the community. That's amazing.
And you guys just purchased liquidheroes.com, I'm sure. We'll see that soon. I'm teasing.
Yes, tomorrow.
Right as we speak, actually.
What's up?
Sheth, you know the routine.
It's basically the same thing as Heyoka. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. It's a lot of fun doing a little interview and just chilling with friends. If you want to learn more about me, lately I've just been streaming a lot of Heroes, so feel free to check me out at twitch.tv/liquidsheth, or just look under the Heroes section. I'll probably be streaming quite a bit for the next 3 or 4 days, and then 4 hours a day. But if you see me around, awesome, come say hi. And then of course, huge shout out to obviously TL, all our sponsors, and everyone in the community there as well. It's amazing.
Matt, my beautiful co-host.
So you can find me at CSTeve on Twitter. I've been using it a lot more lately. So if you have questions or people that if you want to get interviewed and you're a person in the community, hit me up on there or hit up Jake. Shout outs to the CMs that we talked about today, because you guys are awesome. Thank you. And anything else that you want to contact me, I'm either on the Heroes subreddit, r/Heroes of the Storm, or Twitter. So that's it. Just Google CSTeve and you'll find me somewhere. Thanks.
And mine's pretty self-explanatory. If you're watching live right now, it's MLG.TV/SolidJake for the VOD viewers. YouTube is youtube.com/SolidJakeGG, same as my Twitter. And feel free to check out my other show. It's actually more just in-depth about the game. We really talk about the happenings in the community. It's more of a roundtable discussion. We tend to have one guest every week. It's called Town Hall Heroes. We are currently on Zoya TV. twitch.tv/ZoyaTV. That is our current home. But again, the VODs are always on my YouTube. Thanks for watching, and thanks again to the host for coming on, or the guest for coming on tonight, because it's been a really, really great show. It's just always fun to talk about Heroes of the Storm in any capacity. And I guess that does it for Clairvoyance. I always want to say Town Hall. I'm so used to closing out with Town Hall.
It's Clairvoyance, Jake. God damn.
Clairvoyance, gosh. All right, guys. Thanks again. Take care.
See ya.